The Silent Siren Part 1. The Call After Midnight. The clock on the hospital wall ticked its way past midnight. The soft hum of machines, the smell of antiseptic, and the occasional beeping of heart monitors filled the air of Riverside County Hospital. A lonely building standing at the edge of town. Outside. The wind dragged dust along the empty road. Inside, Nurse Amelia Hart sipped her cold coffee, fighting sleep at the reception desk. It was one of those nights when everything felt heavier, silence pressing down like a fog, and every creak of the old hospital sounding louder than it should. Then the phone rang, a shrill, unnatural sound that sliced through the quiet. Amelia flinched, the cup slipping from her fingers and spilling across the desk. She quickly grabbed the receiver. Greater Than Riverside Hospital, this is Nurse Hart. How can I? Then. A voice, it was weak, trembling old woman's whisper. Greater than, please. Send an ambulance. My son, he's not breathing. Amelia straightened. Ma'am, please calm down. Can you tell me your address? Greater Than Old Pine Road. Plot 7. Amelia froze. Old Pine Road, That place hadn't been on any hospital record for nearly 20 years. It had burned down in a forest fire that killed 6 families. The area was now fenced off. Abandoned. Ma'am, Amelia said carefully. That location is no longer but the voice interrupted. Harsher now. Greater than, he's dying. Hurry. Then silence. No disconnect tone. Just the sound of breathing. And something else. A faint siren, echoing through the static. Amelia blinked and quickly checked the clock. 12:17 a.m. The phone line went dead. She looked around the empty reception. Only one other person was awake in the building, Ethan Cole, the night shift ambulance driver. He was sitting in the garage downstairs, reading an old magazine, waiting for an emergency that never came. Amelia grabbed her radio. Greater Than, Ethan, we just got a call. Possible cardiac arrest. Old Pine Road, Plot 7. There was a pause. Then Ethan's lazy voice crackled through the speaker. Plot 7. You sure about that? That's the burned section, right? I know, she replied, lowering her tone. But the woman sounded desperate. Ethan sighed. He'd been driving that same ambulance number 13 for years, the oldest vehicle in the hospital fleet. Its paint was peeling, its siren barely worked. And rumor said it had once crashed during a storm, killing the medic inside. No one liked taking it out at night. But it was the only one available. Greater Than, all right, he muttered. On my way, the wind outside was picking up as Ethan turned the key. The ambulance coughed, lights flickering to life. The red glow bounced off the walls of the garage like warning eyes. He turned on the radio. Nothing, just static. As the gate opened, Ethan glanced at the rearview mirror. The back of the ambulance was dark, too dark. He shook off the unease and drove out onto the empty road. The town faded behind him in minute streetlights, disappearing one by one until there was only the winding road and the soft wail of the siren, echoing faintly through the trees. Old Pine Road was about 15 minutes away. Deep in the woods where the fire had happened. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. A thick fog rolled in from the forest, curling across the headlights like fingers. Branches arched over the road, skeletal and black against the moonlight. Then, through the mist he saw something. A figure, standing at the side of the road. He slowed down, squinting through the windshield. It was a woman, old, with gray hair tangled around her shoulders, wearing a nightgown stained dark at the hem. She was waving both hands, eyes wide. Ethan pulled over, stepping out with his flashlight. "Ma'am, did you call for help?" The beam caught her face pale-lined, but oddly still. She pointed down the road. Greater than my boy. He's waiting. Hurry. Where is he? But she had already turned, walking into the fog. Bare feet dragging through the dirt. Ethan hesitated, then got back in and drove slowly forward. Plot 7 After another half-mile, he reached the remains of an old wooden gate. The numbers 7 were barely visible on a rusted plate. Beyond its charred foundations, collapsed roofs, and ash-covered ground. He turned off the engine. The silence was suffocating. Hello, he called out, stepping into the ruins. No response. Then, from somewhere near the back of the ambulance, thud. He froze, turned slowly. The back door was slightly ajar. He was sure he'd locked it. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and walked to the back. He swung the door open. A stretcher lay inside, and on it, a man, pale, motionless, eyes half open, chest still. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Holy, how did you? He climbed in, checking for a pulse. Cold, no heartbeat. The man's face looked peaceful, almost too peaceful, like someone sleeping after a long illness. He grabbed the radio. Amelia, I found someone. Male, mid-30s, unconscious. Sending vitals soon. Static answered him. No voice. Just a faint breathing sound through the line. He switched the ignition back on. The siren flickering weakly to life. The ambulance began rolling back toward town. The ride back the road back seemed longer. Ethan kept glancing at the rearview mirror. The man on the stretcher hadn't moved, but every few seconds, the stretcher seemed closer to the door, as if it had shifted slightly with each bump. He told himself it was the uneven road, but when he looked again, he saw something that froze his breath. The man's hand had fallen off the stretcher. It hung loosely in the air, but wasn't swinging with the motion of the vehicle. It was gripping the metal rail. Ethan slammed the brakes. The ambulance screeched to a stop. He turned around completely. The stretcher was empty. Only the faint outline of a body remained on the sheet. The door behind him creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed in, and for a second, he thought he heard a whisper near his ear. Greater than you left me halfway. He jumped out of the ambulance, scanning the fog-covered road with his flashlight. Nothing, just the silent forest. He shut the doors, climbed back in, and pressed the accelerator hard until the lights of the hospital came into view. Back at Riverside, Amelia was waiting by the entrance, holding a clipboard. Asterisk, when Ethan stopped, she frowned. Where's the patient? Asterisk, what do you mean? He's in the back. They both opened the rear doors. Empty. Not even the stretcher remained. Just the faint smell of burnt wood. Asterisk, Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. I swear to God, he was here. Asterisk, Amelia didn't respond. She just turned slowly toward the hospital wall behind him. Asterisk, Ethan. She whispered, look. Asterisk, pinned on the garage wall was a photograph, one of those old, faded memorial photos of victims from the Pine Fire disaster. Asterisk, in the front row was a smiling man. Mid-30s, same face, same eyes. Asterisk, below it, a small caption read, asterisk. Jason Morgan died, October 15, 2005. Burned beyond recognition. The same date glowed on the hospital clock. October 15th. Ethan turned back to the ambulance. Asterisk, the siren light flickered once, twice, then stayed on, and from inside the vehicle, faint but clear, came the sound of breathing. Slow, steady, patient. The Silent Siren Part 2. The passenger without a pulse. The siren stopped at exactly 3:03 a.m. asterisk for a few seconds. The hospital courtyard stood silent. No wind, no motion. Only the faint hum of fluorescent lights trembling above the old ambulance bay. Asterisk, Ethan stepped out, shaking hands, gripping the keys. Asterisk, behind him, the red emergency light flickered once, then died completely. Asterisk, Nurse Amelia stood nearby, still holding that faded photograph of Jason Morgan, the man who was supposed to be dead for 20 years. Asterisk, it can't be. Ethan whispered, staring at the empty ambulance bay. Asterisk, he was right there, Amelia. I touched him. He was cold, but real. Amelia's eyes darted toward the open back door of the ambulance. The inside was spotless to clean, as if it had been washed moments ago. No blood, no marks, no stretcher. Asterisk, she swallowed hard. You need to rest, Ethan. You've been on too many night shifts. Asterisk, greater than you think, I imagined that. Asterisk, I think something strange happened. But let's not talk about this now. Asterisk, she turned away, hiding the tremor in her hands. Asterisk, but when she glanced at the window glass beside the bay, her reflection wasn't alone. Asterisk, there was someone else behind her, pale, gride, standing just out of focus. Asterisk, when she spun around, the space was empty. The shadow in the garage. Asterisk, by 4 a.m. the hospital had settled back into its usual rhythm of humming machines and dim corridor lights. Ethan sat inside the ambulance garage, staring at the wall clock. Asterisk, he had driven the same ambulance for 7 years. He knew every dent, every smell, the old leather seat, the faint rust on the dashboard, but tonight it felt different. Asterisk, the air inside carried a strange odor, burnt wood and wet earth. He grabbed his logbook and flipped to a clean page. Greater than trip report, 12:17 a.m. caller, unidentified female location, Old Pine Road. Plot 7, asterisk, patient, adult male, deceased upon discovery. Asterisk, transport, incomplete, patient vanished, en route. He stopped writing there. What would he even write next? Patient disappeared into thin air. He would lose his job. Asterisk, he shut the book and leaned back. Then he heard it again. Faint click from the back of the ambulance. He turned, nothing, asterisk, but when he looked at the mirror above the driver's seat, he saw something moving, the faint shadow of a person sitting upright on the stretcher. Asterisk, who's there? No answer. He reached for his flashlight and opened the rear door. The stretcher was empty, but on the white sheet, something had appeared. A handprint smeared faintly in ash. Asterisk, the air grew colder. His breath came out in pale mist. And then the siren switch, untouched, flicked on by itself. A low, distorted wail echoed through the garage. Asterisk, Ethan stumbled back, heart pounding, and slammed the power main off. The siren choked mid-scream. Asterisk, he stood there breathing hard, listening to the silence return. Behind him, a whisper floated from the darkness. Greater than halfway. You left me halfway. The call back asterisk at 6 a.m. The morning shift began. Asterisk, the hospital filled with chatter again. Nurses moving. Patients murmuring. Coffee brewing. Ethan hadn't slept. When Amelia came in, she found him sitting on the ambulance hood, staring at his phone. Asterisk, greater than you look like hell, she said softly. I got a call, he replied. Greater than another patient. Asterisk, no. From the same number as last night. He showed her the screen. Unknown caller, 12:17 a.m. Appeared twice. He pressed play on the voicemail. A woman's voice came through the speaker. The same broken whisper they'd heard last night. Asterisk, he's not breathing. Send help. Old Pine Road. Hurry. But this time, there was something new. A faint sound beneath the words. A heartbeat. Asterisk, slow, steady, and mechanical, like a machine buried deep in static. Asterisk, Amelia's face paled. That's impossible. That line was cut off years ago. Asterisk, Ethan nodded. Maybe it wasn't. The return asterisk that evening, Ethan couldn't resist. He waited until the hospital quieted again and rolled the ambulance out into the yard. Greater than, where are you going? Amelia called from the steps. Asterisk, back to plot 7. I need to know what's going on. Asterisk, greater than Ethan, that place is condemned. The forest department sealed it off. Asterisk, greater than then who keeps calling from there. Asterisk, he didn't wait for her answer. The engine coughed to life. Headlights slicing through the misty night. He drove alone. As the road wound through the woods, he realized something unsettling. Asterisk, the route seemed shorter than last night. The trees closing in faster. The turns tighter asterisk, and through the static of his old radio, came faint music. An old lullaby. Sung off-key by a woman's voice. Asterisk, he turned the volume down. It didn't help. The song was coming from inside the ambulance. Asterisk. At plot 7 again asterisk, when he reached the burned clearing. Moonlight spilled over the blackened ruins. Asterisk, the same air. The same silence. Asterisk, he stepped out, holding his flashlight. Hello? Is anyone here? The wind answered. Then, from inside the ambulance, he heard footsteps. Asterisk, he spun around and pointed. The light toward the rear. Window, 2 shadows moving behind the frosted glass. He ran to the back and yanked the doors open. The stretcher was there again. Asterisk, and this time, someone lay on it. A young woman, her face pale. eyes half closed, hair matted with dirt. Asterisk, Ethan's stomach twisted. Oh God, ma'am. Can you hear me? Her chest rose faintly. Alive. Asterisk, he lifted her onto the monitor. Checking vitals, pulse faint, but there. Asterisk, hang on, he said, climbing into the driver's seat. You'll be fine. The siren wailed to life as he sped toward the hospital. Halfway down the road, she spoke. Asterisk, greater than you came back. Asterisk, Ethan glanced at the mirror. Her eyes were open now, glassy, glowing faintly white. Asterisk, who are you? He whispered. Asterisk, greater than you left us burning, she said, voice layered. As if two people spoke at once. Asterisk, you promised to take us away. But you left us halfway. Asterisk, Ethan slammed the brakes, nearly throwing himself forward. The back of the ambulance was empty again. Only smoke. Asterisk, thick, choking smoke. Asterisk, he stumbled out, coughing, and watched as the ambulance lights began flashing on their own. Siren blaring a horrible metallic tone that sounded almost like screaming. Asterisk, inside the cab window, he saw a reflection, not his. A man's face burned, melted on one side, staring back at him. Greater than, drive us home, it whispered. The next second, the siren cut out completely. Everything went black. Asterisk. The morning after, asterisk, when Ethan opened his eyes, sunlight streamed through the ambulance windshield. Asterisk. He was parked neatly in the hospital bay, keys still in the ignition. Asterisk, Amelia was standing outside, calling his name. Asterisk, greater than Ethan, are you okay? You've been gone all night. Asterisk, he stepped out slowly. I don't remember coming back. Asterisk, she frowned. You didn't. The night guard said the ambulance drove in on its own around 3 a.m. Doors locked from the inside. Asterisk, he stared at her, trying to process the words. Asterisk, then, she handed him something, a folded hospital report. Printed early that morning. Greater than, incoming patient record, 3:03 a.m. name, unknown female, approx. 25 years, asterisk, condition, deceased upon arrival, asterisk, transported by, ambulance number 13 driver, Ethan Cole, asterisk, cause of death, Burns Old Pine District, 2005. Asterisk, that's impossible, Ethan whispered. There was no one in the ambulance. Asterisk, Amelia's voice trembled. Someone signed the form. She handed him the clipboard. The signature line read, Jason Morgan, asterisk, that night. No one could find Ethan's logbook. Asterisk, but on the dashboard of ambulance number 13, someone had written a single sentence in ash. Asterisk, we are still waiting for the rest.
The Silent Siren, Part 3, Blood on the Wheels. The next morning at Riverside County Hospital began like any other. Doctors moved through the corridors, nurses checked charts, and sunlight spilled weakly through dusty windows. But beneath that quiet, something had changed. People whispered. Someone swore they had seen ambulance number 13 rolling through the parking lot at 3 a.m. without a driver. Others said they heard its siren faintly howling in the woods near Old Pine Road again, even though the vehicle had been parked all night. Ethan Cole hadn't been seen since dawn. And yet, someone had clocked in using his ID. The hospital director's warning, Dr. Morgan, the hospital's aging director, stared at Ethan's file spread across his desk. His hands trembled slightly as he scanned the line about the female patient, deceased upon arrival. That name, Jason Morgan, signed at the bottom. It was the same name as his own son, his only son, the boy who had died in the old pine fire of 2005. He closed his eyes. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. For years, he had buried the truth, the real story of what happened that night, the ambulance that never reached its destination, the same vehicle that now sat quietly in his garage. He whispered to himself, "You weren't supposed to come back." One Amelia's discovery down in the garage. Nurse Amelia Hart stood before ambulance 113. She'd been hearing strange noises all morning, a soft ticking, like a heartbeat coming from the vehicle's metal frame. Now, standing inches from it, she could hear it clearly. Thump, thump, thump. Slow, steady, mechanical. The smell of burnt rubber and iron filled the air. Amelia pulled open the back doors. Inside lay a folded stretcher sheet, stiff and dry, stained in patches of brown red. She lifted it with gloved hands. Underneath, carved into the metal floor, were words. "We never made it." Her hand flew to her mouth. At that exact moment, the hospital lights flickered. All around her, the air turned colder. The ambulance headlights blinked once, then twice, and turned on by themselves. The siren screamed. Amelia stumbled back as the ambulance jerked forward, its engine roaring to life with no one behind the wheel. It smashed through the garage gate and rolled into the fog beyond. No, she cried, running after it, but it was gone. The town awakens at 3:40 a.m. Residents of the small town of Riverside woke to the sound of an ambulance siren echoing through the empty streets, over and over. No lights on the road, no driver in sight, only the sound weaving between the trees, circling the outskirts like a ghost that refused to rest. Old Mr. Benson, who lived near Pine Creek Bridge, later swore he saw headlights sliding through the fog, but no vehicle, just light floating above the ground, and in its wake, bloodstains appeared along the road. The mechanic's fate. By morning, police and hospital staff searched the outskirts. The first person they found was Carl, the hospital mechanic. He'd gone looking for the missing ambulance before dawn. They found his truck parked on Old Pine Road, headlights still on. Carl himself sat inside, eyes open, mouth frozen mid-scream. No pulse. On the dashboard, drawn in dust, was the ambulance's insignia, a red cross. Under it, written in shaky letters, "It found me." When they looked at his hands, they were blackened, burned, as if he had grabbed a red-hot steering wheel. Ethan returns. That night, Amelia stayed late, sorting files. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she couldn't go home, not after what she'd seen. Around midnight, the hospital intercom crackled on. "Nurse Hart, come to the garage, please." It was Ethan's voice. She froze. The sound of his calm, deep tone was unmistakable. But Ethan was gone. She grabbed a flashlight and hurried downstairs. The hallways were dark. The flickering bulbs buzzed like flies. When she reached the garage, the gate was open again. Ambulance Thumbrasha 13 was parked neatly in its old spot, spotless, as if freshly washed. Ethan stood beside it, back turned. "Ethan," she whispered. He turned slowly. His uniform was soaked, not in sweat, not in rain, but something dark. His face was pale, lips trembling. "They're not done," he said. "They still need a ride." "Ethan, what happened to you?" He looked at her, eyes glassy and lifeless. "You have to help them, Amelia. You have to take the wheel." "What are you talking about? They were patients once. Before the fire, they waited for the ambulance that never came." Then he smiled faintly, too faintly. And in that smile, she saw ashes falling from his skin. He was fading. She reached forward, but her hand passed through him, like smoke. And then, he was gone. The ambulance doors opened by themselves. Inside, the stretcher rolled forward ready. "No," she whispered, stepping back. "Not me." But the siren wailed again, louder than before, shaking the walls. The vehicle rolled forward slowly, the door slamming shut behind her. The ride of the dead. When Amelia came to her senses, she was sitting in the driver's seat, the keys turned on their own. Outside, fog swallowed everything. The hospital, the road, even the stars. Only the red light from the siren cut through the dark. A faint voice from the back said, "Drive." She looked at the mirror. 6 figures sat in the back of the ambulance, burned, blackened, some without faces, others clutching their chests. They all stared at her. "Take us home." The gear shifted by itself. The wheels rolled. Amelia tried to pull the handbrake. It didn't move. Her feet pressed hard against the brake pedal, but it sank deep, as if the floor itself was melting. The ambulance roared down the road, faster and faster. Through the windshield, the world blurred, flames flickering in the trees, voices crying out. She could see flashes of the past, people trapped in a burning house, banging on the ambulance door that never came. Among them, a young man, Jason Morgan, reaching toward her. "Why didn't you come?" he whispered. "We didn't know," she cried. "We tried," but the voices rose, hundreds of them, overlapping. "You left us halfway." Smoke filled the cabin. Her lungs burned. She screamed, slamming the steering wheel, and the world went black. The next morning, when dawn came, Riverside woke to silence. The fog had lifted, the roads were clean, but there, at the center of Old Pine Road, stood Ambulance Sector 13, perfectly parked in the middle of the ruins. The engine was cold, the siren light was still. Inside, no one. Only a faint trail of bloody footprints led away from the driver's door and vanished into the trees. Police later reported that the vehicle's odometer had increased by 47 miles that night, though no one had seen it move. And beneath the front wheel, someone had written in dried blood, "Aiden Ford." 1 week later, Dr. Morgan sat alone in his office, staring at the death certificates from the Pine file. Each one had been signed by him 20 years ago. He thought he had moved on. He thought the past had been away. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated and picked up, static. Then a voice. "Send an ambulance. Please, he's not breathing." He froze. It was Amelia's voice. The line crackled, the sound of a siren echoing faintly through the static. And then, silence. Dr. Morgan stood trembling and looked out his window. Far beyond the hospital yard, at the edge of the woods, a single red light blinked through the fog.
Asterisk. The Silent Siren, Part 5. The final whistle, the night had swallowed. Riverside Hole, fog clung to the streets, thick and suffocating. Streetlights flickered, casting long, quivering shadows. The town's residents slept uneasily, unaware that a curse from 20 years ago had returned to hunt them. Asterisk. At the center of the nightmare sat ambulance number 13. Its engine running, siren wailing intermittently like a death cry. No driver, no one inside. Yet somehow, it moved with intent. Ethan's return. Ethan Cole awoke abruptly. He was in the hospital garage, sitting in the driver's seat of ambulance #13. Everything was quiet, too quiet. The morning fog lingered, thick and damp against the tires. He could see no one, hear no one. Only the faint, lingering smell of burnt wood and iron. Asterisk, he couldn't remember how he got there. The events of the past nights were fragmented, twisted like smoke. Then he felt it, a presence in the back. The stretcher moved slightly, as if someone had shifted weight. Asterisk, greater than not again. Ethan whispered, heart hammering. The siren flickered once, then twice, and finally it blared, shattering the stillness. Asterisk, inside the back. Figures emerged from the shadows, charred, twisted, pale, and familiar. Jason Morgan, Carl Amelia, all staring with eyes that were alive, yet dead. Greater than drive, Jason whispered. Ethan's hands shook. He had no control. Asterisk, the ambulance accelerated on its own, leaving the garage, rolling into the streets of Riverside. The town awakens. People woke to the sirens screaming through the streets. They opened windows, peeked outdoors, hearts pounding. Asterisk, the ambulance weaved through the empty roads at impossible speed. Its headlights cut through the fog like twin knives. Shadows inside shifted and twisted, faces of the dead pressing against the glass, mouths opening in silent screams. Asterisk, old Mr. Benson ran to his front porch. "It's back," he shouted. The cursed ambulance. Asterisk. He had survived the fire all those years ago, barely. Now, the nightmare had returned. Chaos in the streets. Asterisk, ambulance number 13 barreled through intersections, narrowly missing parked cars, street and signs. Asterisk, Ethan tried desperately to brake, but the pedal sank deep into the floor. The steering wheel was stiff, as if controlled by a force beyond him. Asterisk, the back doors creaked open. Figures began to rise from the stretchers, walking toward him through the smoke-filled cabin. Asterisk, greater than you left us halfway. Amelia whispered, her voice layered over Jason's. Ethan's scream echoed inside the vehicle. The engine roared. The tires screeched, and the ambulance spun wildly before regaining its path, heading straight toward the town's center. The forest and the flames. Asterisk, the ambulance exited the streets and entered the old pine woods. The site of the original fire. Asterisk, flames from 20 years ago seemed to rise again, licking the trees in ghostly orange. The dead had returned to claim the living. Ethan looked back. Shadows of people from the original fire followed the ambulance, trailing behind it through the mist. Asterisk, Jason appeared beside him in the driver's seat, pale, burnt but alive in the eyes that pierced Ethan's soul. Asterisk, greater than finish the ride, he whispered, or be left behind. Ethan had no choice. The ambulance sped deeper into the forest. Every twist, every turn, felt like it was guiding itself, drawing them toward a single destination. The doctor's revelation. Asterisk, suddenly, through the radio, a voice crackled. Dr. Henry Morgan. Asterisk, greater than Ethan, listen to me. Asterisk, the ambulance veered slightly. Ethan grabbed the radio. Asterisk, the only way to end this is to reach the heart of the fire. To Old Pine Road, where it all began. Asterisk, Jason's eyes glowed faintly. Do you really think you can stop it, Dad? Asterisk, Henry's voice trembled. No, but you might save the town. If you survive the ride. Asterisk, the road ahead burned in flickering red. The fire's heat was real and spectral at the same time. The ambulance raced forward, colliding with the past. Asterisk, as they reached the ruins of Plot 7, Ethan saw visions of the original victims. Families, children, neighbors, all screaming silently. Asterisk, the ambulance doors opened by themselves. Some of the spirits climbed out, disappearing into the flames. Others remained inside, pressed against the windows, staring. Asterisk, greater than drive faster, Jason shouted. Ethan floored the accelerator. The vehicle swerved dangerously, cutting through fallen trees, ash, and shadows. Asterisk, then he saw it, the epicenter of the fire. A blackened clearing where the 6 families had perished. The air shimmered with heat and energy, warping reality itself. The final whistle, the ambulance skidded into the center of the clearing. The engine stalled. The siren wailed one last time, long, piercing, almost human. Asterisk, inside. The spirits rose from the stretchers. Asterisk, Jason Morgan reached out to his father. Henry Morgan. asterisk greater than you, kept us waiting for too long. But tonight, it ends. Asterisk the spirits floated upward, screaming, vanishing in a flash of light. The ambulance shook violently, metal twisting, windows cracking. Asterisk Ethan clutched the wheel. Heat seared his arms, but the road was suddenly calm. The engine quieted asterisk when he opened his eyes. Everything was still. The fog cleared. Riverside was quiet. Ambulance number 13 sat in the ruins. Cold, dark, lifeless. No siren. No headlights. Just the faint smell of burnt pine and ash. Jason Morgan's voice whispered in the wind. Greater than we are free. And so are you. Asterisk Ethan slumped back in the seat, trembling. Alive. Surrounded by ruins. But alive morning after asterisk at sunrise. Riverside awoke asterisk, no trace of the chaos remained in town. Except for the ruins of Old Pine Road and the charred clearing. Asterisk Henry Morgan arrived at the site. Tears streaming down his face. Asterisk he saw Ethan alive. The ambulance silent. The spirits gone. Asterisk it's over, he whispered. Asterisk Ethan shook his head slowly. I don't think it ever really ends. That ambulance, it waits. From the clearing, a faint echo rose, a distant siren. Greater than whistle. Whistle, asterisk, and somewhere, deep in the forest, the shadows seemed to move. The Silent Siren. Part 6. Return to silence. The fog had returned to Riverside. Thicker than ever. Asterisk, it slithered through the streets, curling around streetlights and telephone poles, swallowing the town in a gray, suffocating blanket, asterisk but the town's residents, still shaken from the events of the past week, remained unaware that the nightmare was far from over. Asterisk, at the heart of it all, sat ambulance number 13. Motionless in the ruins of Old Pine Road. Asterisk its red light flickered faintly. Its siren, silent. For now, Ethan's vigil asterisk Ethan Cole sat outside the ambulance, staring at the empty back doors. Asterisk he hadn't slept in 3 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw faces pressed against the glass, mouths moving, screaming silently. Asterisk, Jason Morgan's face haunted him, pale, burnt eyes that seemed to follow him even in dreams. Asterisk, greater than. It's over, he whispered to himself. Asterisk, it has to be over. Yet the air smelled of smoke and iron. The hairs on his neck stood on end. Shadow moved in the rearview mirror. Asterisk Ethan spun around. No one. The ambulance shuddered, metal creaking. A whisper floated through the air. Asterisk, we are not done. The doctor's arrival DR. Henry Morgan arrived quietly. He had walked the ruined roads to reach the ambulance, haunted by the knowledge of what he had caused. Asterisk greater than Ethan, he said, voice trembling. Asterisk, I thought the curse ended when the spirits were freed. But ambulance number 13. It keeps a piece of them inside. It waits. For the living, asterisk Ethan's hands tightened on the hood. So what do we do, Henry? Asterisk Henry looked at the vehicle. Its metal gleamed faintly, almost alive. Asterisk greater than we finish it. Once and for all. We face it together. The Plantha two men approached ambulance number 13 carefully. The air inside the garage felt heavier than usual, as if the vehicle exhaled a breath that was centuries old. Henry carried a small box. Inside were vials of a strange silver powder, remnants of the hospital's experimental attempts to cleanse supernatural energy. This may be our only chance, he said. Ethan nodded. Together, they climbed into the ambulance. The doors closed by themselves. Locking with a metallic snap. The engine roared. The siren wailed faintly, a low, guttural sound that seemed to come from within the metal itself. Inside the haunted ambulance, the interior of the ambulance stretched impossibly. The back seemed endless, a void filled with flickering images of the dead, Jason, Amelia, Carl, and countless others. Trapped in limbo, greater than we have to face them, Henry said, handing Ethan a vial. Throw this powder at the heart of the ambulance. It will purge the spirits. Ethan nodded, his hands shaking. He moved toward the rear compartment. Greater than, Jason, he whispered. I'm sorry we left you. Sorry we failed you. The ghostly boy appeared, hovering above the stretcher. He reached out, pale fingers brushing Ethan's arm. It's not your fault, Jason whispered. But it's time. The purge. Ethan threw the silver powder into the center of the back. Immediately, the ambulance shook violently. The walls warped. Images of the dead twisting and screaming. The siren screamed like 1,000 voices in agony. Jason and the other spirits rose, swirling in a cyclone of shadows and light. The vehicle itself seemed alive. Metal bending, windows cracking, engine roaring. Greater than hold on, Henry shouted. Bracing himself, the silver powder caught fire. Not a normal flame, but a spectral, blue-white blaze that illuminated the faces of the trapped souls. One by one. The figures screamed, then vanished, leaving only echoes. The ambulance shook once, twice, and then fell silent. Silence returns. Ethan opened his eyes. The ambulance was still, cold, lifeless. He stepped out slowly. Henry followed. Outside, the fog had lifted. The first light of dawn spilled over the ruins of Old Pine Road. No sirens. No whispers. No shadows. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. Greater than. It's finally over, he said. Henry nodded, though his face remained pale. Greater than for now, he said. Ambulance number 13 will never move on its own again, but the memories will remain. A final goodbye. Ethan walked to the edge of the clearing. He knelt, placing a hand on the ground where the fire had burned years ago. I'm sorry. Jason, I'm sorry to everyone we couldn't save. A gentle breeze stirred the ashes. For a brief moment, Ethan thought he saw a pale, smiling face in the sunlight. Jason. Finally, at peace. He stood, taking a deep breath. Riverside would heal. The town could begin again. And at last, silence returned. Epilogue. Weeks later, Riverside County Hospital resumed normal operations. No one spoke of the ambulance or the events at Old Pine Road. Ethan returned to work. Changed, haunted, but alive. Henry Morgan retired quietly, carrying the secret to his grave. Asterisk ambulance number 13 sat in the garage, empty, lifeless, a relic of the past. A reminder of the price of negligence, fear, and the lives lost in the fire. Asterisk some say that on misty nights, if you listen closely, you can hear a faint siren echoing through the trees. But those who hear it never speak of it again. The silent siren had returned to its eternal rest, the end.